You know, I found a really great way to practice is to just maybe record a drone track, just like a steady note without any chord or anything like that. And what that allows you to do is it really allows you to experiment and really hear the relationship of different notes against that root tone. So like in the intro there, I was playing against just an E drone, and I was kind of weaving in and out and adding different sounds, and it just kind of really allowed me to explore how those notes, those particular notes, made me feel in that moment. So that's what I want to talk about in this particular video, is just different ways of practicing like over these drone style tracks that you can explore and really get the most out of your time. But the cool thing about playing over a drone track, now I've spent plenty of time in my life practicing over chord changes, right? It takes a lot of work to be good at be able to flow through chord changes. But the cool thing about a drone track is you don't have to think about those things, and it could be anything. It could be major, it could be minor, it could be a certain mode you're working on. It could also just be working on phrasing and things like that, so you don't have to think about the chords changing. You can just more focus on your rhythm. So there's so many great things that come with these kind of drone style practices. So one of the things that I really like is combining different things together. So when you learn a scale, you should be able to play that scale, but you should also be able to play different components of that scale. So for example, I'm playing against an E drone, and let's say I wanted to start with just an E minor pentatonic or an E minor sound in general, okay? Okay, that's cool, but what I want to do is I want to start combining that maybe with some arpeggios. A lot of times what we do is we separate things. We say, okay, I can play an arpeggio, and then I can play a pentatonic scale, and then I could play a mode or something, and they're kind of in different lanes. And that's not a bad thing to practice, but ideally what you want to be able to do is combine these things together. So one of the things I like to do over a drone, try to combine like a minor pentatonic with a minor arpeggio or something like that. So one of the ways that I like to do that is to maybe play up one sound and down another. So I'll go up like an E minor arpeggio or E minor 7, let's say, for example. And then I'll descend down a pentatonic scale. Or vice versa. Maybe you go up the pentatonic scale and down the pentatonic. Another thing I like to do is break the octave up. So maybe I'll play an arpeggio up the first octave and then a pentatonic. And vice versa, up a pentatonic. Let's check that out over the track. Okay, so what I'm doing there is just blending kind of the minor pentatonic with that minor 7th arpeggio and trying to get some more interesting lines out of it. Also, you notice I kind of slipped into some triplet feel lines in there too. So I'm working on my phrasing. That's kind of in the background. Of course, I've been doing this for years, so it's a little bit easier for me to jump from one thing to the next. But if you're just starting out at this kind of thing and you want to really diversify your playing, you know, you might want to just focus on one rhythmic subdivision, maybe just triplets for a while, or just 8th notes, or just 16th notes, and then eventually learn how to combine them. And that goes the same with, the arpeggios and the pentatonic scale. All right, let's say, for example, we took a full minor scale, and in this case, I'm going to play the Dorian minor, which would be... Okay, now of course we start out with the scale, and it's good to kind of run that scale for a while, get your fingers used to it and everything. But again, just kind of going up and down a scale can be quite boring and limiting in some way. It's limiting in its sound. So I want to combine that with some of the other stuff I worked on. I worked on, the minor 7th arpeggio and combining that with the minor pentatonic. Now I want to maybe work with the minor pentatonic, combining that with the scale. These are all little games I like to play with myself to just kind of get a little more diversity in my playing against that drone track. So here's another example. Let's say, for example, I go up the scale. And then, you know, come down the pentatonic. And again, I'm splitting it up into 2 octaves. So maybe I'll go up the pentatonic for an octave. So there I split it up. I went up pentatonic for the first octave, then up the scale or the mode for the second octave, and just did the same thing coming down. So these are little games I like to play with myself, just trying to diversify my playing. And that's what's cool about these drones. It kind of allows you to focus on that without having to worry about a bunch of chord changes. All right, so I'm going to jam a little bit and just give you some examples of mixing that Dorian mode with the arpeggio and some of the pentatonic scale. Okay, pretty cool. I was just letting it go. I've done this exercise quite a bit, but that's just an example. If you see how it's like really diverse, that my playing is not so predictable. Maybe it is if you hear me play after a while, you kind of know my style, but if you hear me for the first time, you're like, wow, he's throwing all these different lines together, and it's because I'm combining all these different devices together. That's what these drone style tracks really allow you to do. Now another thing is with a drone track, like I said, there's no harmony there. There's no like major or minor or anything like that. So you can play anything over it and, you know, to explore that sound for a while, especially if it's something new to you. So let's say, for example, you're just kind of getting used to this Lydian mode or Dorian mode or whatever it is. You know, you can really work that out for a while and, you know, kind of get your ear used to it. You know, get your fingers used to the patterns, and you don't have to think about a bunch of chord changes, you know. Another thing that I like to do is kind of just change modes or change sounds in the middle of it so I can hear the difference. So, like, for example, if I want to kind of hear the difference between just the major scale and the Lydian mode, for example, I'll just kind of go back and forth between those, and it'll really start to train your ear on, like, wow, how that Lydian mode sounds against the major scale. Let's try that out a little bit. So I'm really getting like a good contrast between that, just the E major scale and then the E Lydian mode, and it's really like highlighting the difference between those sounds. So that's another great thing about you know, just using a drone style track, is you can just shift to a different sound right in the middle of it. Do you know what I mean? So really cool stuff. I would highly encourage you to do a little bit of drone practice, thinking about like what are some strategies, how this is going to help me, you know what I mean? Maybe I want to discover some new sounds and just get my ear used to the way they sound. Or maybe I don't want to think about a bunch of chord changes and just work a particular sound and get some of those different triads and different arpeggios and scale tones in there and blend that all together. There's so many different ways that you can practice this. Of course, you can always just work on your phrasing too. Maybe you just take a nice simple pentatonic or something that you're very familiar with that you don't have to think much about, and that you can actually really just focus on your timing and your phrasing and things like that too. I think it's really great to kind of do this every now and then. You don't want to do it all the time, of course, but it's really good to kind of explore those different ideas that we talked about. All right, that's a little bit on drone style practicing. I'll see you next time around.